Okay, Lyvern, let's get into this game. So, unfortunately, I don't play Shen, so I don't really know too much about how this matchup
Welcome
is
to
supposed to go.
Summoner's Rift.
Um, so, a bit of the feedback here might be a bit theoretical, but I'm gonna try and give, uh, you know, advice that might be champion agnostic, and at the same time, maybe some questions you can pose for yourself. So the first thing we can talk about is our choice of summoner spells. So as far as I know, on Shen, typically a lot of the time you do default to Flash Ignite, unless you think that there's no kill pressure in the lane, which is usually when you're against tanks like Ornn or Mundo, as an example. So it's definitely something to look up on whether you should be using TP in this matchup instead. And from the little bit of reading I did on the matchup, Mundo actually does beat Shen pretty hard. Um, so what does that mean, right? I think a lot of the times when people say, you beat somebody, that's concentrated around levels 1 to 3, right? Obviously, things change later on. As an example, something that's kind of not intuitive is that Tryndamere actually beats Jax in a matchup. That is until Jax reaches around level 9 or 11, at which point the matchup changes, and Tryndamere needs to get a lead before that point. So, anyways, continuing, let's go on and play the game, speed it up a bit.
30 seconds until minions
So,
spawn.
something to always think about is where your jungler is starting, right? Uh,
Minions have
so the
spawned.
game does kind of change based on whether your jungler is pathing towards you or away from you, as well as like who that jungler is, right? So okay, oh wow, okay, he's like hard won that trade. Interesting. See, that's like something new for me. Uh, that the Shen would absolutely destroy the game. Oh, okay, you got your Q to clip through as well. So part of why the jungler might also be relevant here is depending on the jungle matchups as well. It might change whether you should be trying to get push or conceding the push, right? Uh, as an example, if your jungler is uh, much stronger than the enemy jungler, and it's relevant for you to get prio so that you can try and invade the enemy, right? Is relevant. Just go and play this out. So from what I read, because I mean I'm clearly not seeing this in practice, but what I read is that typically Shen loses in the early portion of the lane to Mundo. So what you usually want to do is let the wave push towards you, right? And one thing you can do if the enemy top laner is leashing and your one isn't, and in this game, I would have kind of assumed that both junglers would start red and kind of path down, just because this is a much relevant matchup compared to bot lane, right? What you can actually do is you can pull these minions. If the Mundo isn't in lane, you can kind of pull these minions, and I believe you have to get each of the casters to auto you once, and then you can go into the bush, and if the Mundo's not here, it kind of ensures that he might miss this first melee minion of XP, and at the same time, it kind of fastens that push towards your side, right? Which is relevant. Anyways, let's play this out. Okay, just this trading pattern over here is not really that great. And let me go through it again and explain why. So you walk up to this Mundo here, right? But the thing is you want to trade based around waves around minion states, right? So over here, the Mundo could very easily just walk backwards because there's nothing for him to get, right? Like this is the lowest HP uh, minion in the wave, and it's not even close to being in last hit distance, right? So the Mundo can literally chill, like he can literally chill all the way back here, and it doesn't even matter, right? Because he's not losing anything. So this walk up, this trade pattern, if this is something that consistently happens, is a mistake because you want to trade in order to deny, right? But here we're not denying anything. Okay. Oh, was good. How do I turn this off? Manual gamma. There we go. Um, so this one was okay because the Mundo, you're trading on a mistake that he's making, right? So because of these HP values, I think he kind of has to concede the push. right? Like, there's no way he's gonna get level 2 before you. And even if he does, like, you know, he's gonna have to lose so much more of his HP to achieve that goal, right? So it's actually the other time when I'm saying there's no low minions, like it's fine, but here you're actually punishing Mundo's mistakes, where he shouldn't even be autoing that minion roll, right? Okay, keeps trading. Okay, that was a bit sussy. I lost count of the minions. I'm pretty sure you hit level 2 super soon on one of these blue minions dying. Is it this one? I don't know if you even got the XP for that. Oh no, this is the second wave. Yeah, so the relevant thing to also keep track of. Like, I'm sure you already know this, but you know, I think it's on the first melee of the second wave that you hit level 2, right? So you've kind of blown your entire load of Flash Ignite, everything before, you know, you had that spike. And I think if you had the level 2, it's much more likely that you actually get the kill instantly, right? But this is still fine. Like, it's not huge. You trade Flash for Flash. It's only 2 minutes into the game, so there's like absolutely no way the jungler's here, right? Okay, good. You're not hard pushing. You're just like blast hitting them. Nice, you got a kill. Yeah. Okay. So before you were last hitting, and now this actually changes, right? So when you're building a slow push, a lot of the times the goal is to crash on this cannon, right? So what happens is if you keep auto attacking the minions on wave 2 and you nonstop auto, you either crash on wave 2 or you push too fast that the wave 2 is going to meet around here, right? At which point you're significantly more vulnerable to ganks, and it's much harder to crash the wave because of the proximity to the enemy tower, right? Like the yeah. Versus, you know, when you last hit originally, it's more likely that the minion wave, the cannon wave is going to be around here. And what changes is now, before you wanted to prevent a fast push, right? But now you want to crash this as fast as possible. So you need to spam hit these minions, especially because Mundo has TP. But here, we're not doing that. That's at least another 3 autos that you could have done. This is a mistake. This is a huge mistake. You can't be last in right now. You need to spam your autos as fast as possible on these minions. Over here, you are actually vulnerable to a gank. And so, I guess some of the relevant timers to know when it comes to jungle is around the 240 mark is when a jungler can have finished their 3 camp and came to gank your lane, right? When they came from the opposite side. If it's on the same side, I think it's a bit earlier. So one thing you need to be apprehensive about is the jungler here, and you probably need a ward, right? So it wouldn't have been at this point, it would have actually been a bit earlier than you put the ward. Because the problem with warding at this time, or even maybe trying to crash at this time, is it's actually really hard for you to crash before wave 4 comes, right? So to figure out when wave 4 is coming, you can just look at your own minions, right? So over here, because it's symmetrical, you know that the enemy wave 4 is around here, right? And when you do these crashes, it's super, super unideal to have the wave 4 already under tower, right? So this is actually, I want to say, a game-losing mistake right here. And there it is. So we see wave 4 comes here, and we still haven't crashed. And if the enemy jungler was, you know, better, you would have, I want to say, you would have definitely already died to a gank by now, right? You have no flash, you have not a lot of HP, you have no ward. Any competent jungler would have came, killed you. The only thing that's good is, you know, Kindred's here, right? So I think there's actually something also relevant I want to point out here about wards, right? So, one thing that the ward also helps within the game, when your jungler is on the same side, is not only is it giving you extra time to, avoid the gank, but you're also giving information to your jungler, right? Like, let's say your jungler's on Krubs, and you have a ward around here, right? And the wave is in this position. You actually have enough time if the enemy, this is probably not going to happen, against better enemy junglers, but if the enemy jungler isn't very good, something that that can happen is the enemy jungler kind of chases you down all the way down the lane, right? And because your jungler is in close proximity, it actually gives them time to do a counter gank, right? And the 3, 4, 5 extra seconds that you'll get from giving that information to your jungler, might actually be the difference between, uh, you know, you just surviving a gank or your enemy jungler coming in, you guys getting a double kill. Yeah, I would not want to trade here at all. Because the thing is we still don't know where the enemy jungler is, right? So still over here, the Mundo's HP is less important than your HP. So even if you're trading equal, you lose out on the trade, right? Because you need your HP to survive a gank. And again, we're not hard-hitting minions. You need to stop this as soon as possible. Again, here you get, saved by the fact that your Kindred actually finds the Nocturne, right? And kills him. Mundo chases him. This is really, really bad for the Mundo. This is really, really awful for the Mundo. Because all he needs to do at this point in the game is collect this wave. He's still chasing. Let's keep playing. Are we still last hitting? Even after we see the Mundo? Well, okay, we're still only last hitting. We're still only last hitting. You need to be spam hitting these minions right now. Okay, we are on that. Nope, you could have gotten an auto on this one. Okay, for you not last hitting here, what it seems like is like you're afraid of missing one of the minions, right? Because like you'll auto and then your minions will kill them. Just hit one of the other minions, right? That's fine. One of the minions that aren't being targeted. Yeah. So for you here, you basically won this lane at this point, and this feels almost unrecoverable, right? For the Mundo. He's gonna be down at least a level because he went for the play in their jungle. But this isn't something that, you pressured the enemy into doing, right? It's kind of like a mistake that they just made on their own. Another mistake here. So before 5 minutes, you know how there's turret plating and you do less damage, right? While turret plating exists, it's actually amplified before 5 minutes. So before 5 minutes, you basically do almost 0 damage to turrets, and there's almost like no point in hitting them because I don't know what the number is, but they do get like a shit ton of bonus armor. So because you've crashed this wave, the only thing you should be thinking about here is recall. Because the Mundo's not here, you don't even need to go to the bush and recall. The very second you kill that last minion that lets you crash, you just insta recall. Because here you're basically doing negligible amounts of damage where you're losing tempo, right? Because the time that you take to recall and come back to lane is still relevant. Okay, let's keep playing. Let me speed this up. What do you buy? Mummies? I mean, you didn't get any extra gold, right, from hitting this. Yeah, okay, so you already had the bombies before you did anything. I thought maybe it was possible you were looking for a buy or something. Because see, like, when you get here a bit extra early, it's possible that you can still fight him on the previous wave, right? Like, when you lose tempo and you recall late, what that allows the enemy to do is actually recover, right? Because the worst case scenario for them, for the enemy laner, when they mess up this hard, is that when the next wave comes after you recall, you contest them, right? Because you're so much stronger. Like, let's look at the items. Yeah, he has Ruby Crystal, you have a Bomby Cinder, right? The worst case scenario for the enemy laner is that they don't get to crash this wave, right? So if you don't lose tempo on your recall, instantly get here, you have time to thin this wave, and then fight them for a freeze here, right? But instead what happens is Mundo gets to clear this whole wave, the next wave is coming. You know, it might actually still be okay. Let's see what happens. I mean that's a pretty giant wave, because his wave's also gonna be coming, right? So what you'd want to do is thin out the wave and then freeze, right? Let's see what happens. Yeah, I would not even be trying to trade. I would not be trading with him at all, right? His HP here does not matter. He can spend all of his HP, crash the wave, recall, buy an item, and you're stuck in the lane until you get your slow push out, right? And now this is just, yeah, this is going to crash no matter what. This wave is too giant to fight in. So he just gets to do that. Let's see if he actually recalls. Let me switch to their side. Okay, yeah, he recalls. Back to red. So, the first huge mistake we talked about was, you know, getting the crash off. And then here, it was the tempo on the recall, right? Because the Mundo basically solo lost his lane. And unless he gets jungler help, if you get a freeze here, it's unrecoverable for him. Because you can deny him tons of gold, tons of XP. Let's keep playing. Good, you're only last hitting here.
Killing spree.
Oh, right. This is the part of the game where I was talking about shen ult usage. So here, when you shen ult, the thing you kind of need to also think about when you do shen ult is like how much am I gonna lose, right? Like shen ulting just to save a teammate is not worth, I want to say, right? Unless your wave is okay, right? Like when you shen ult, the first thing you think about, I think, is the wave, and then the second thing you think about is maybe the play, right? When it comes to saving a teammate. Because what happens is you shen ult, this is a cannon wave, the next wave is coming, you're going to lose this entire wave, you're going to lose the next wave, and then you're going to lose the wave after that one as well, realistically, right? Because you make this play, it might be 10 or 20 seconds, you need to take another maybe 30 to 35 seconds to recall, come back to lane, right? The next wave is already here, so that means the third wave that we might miss is going to be spawning soon, right? So that's like the kind of stuff you want to think about. I said this was fine, despite how much you could potentially lose here, because one, you save the Kindred, who I think is, I mean, he's fed relatively, not as fed as the Vayne, but he's fed. You guys get the kill on. Actually, okay. I see. When I looked at it originally, I thought he was gonna die. But what I'm seeing here is he probably kills them 2v1 without you, TBH. Oh, does he? Yeah, okay, your shen ult. I mean, it's kind of nitpicking. I think he could have lived without the shen ult, but like, it's still fine. Like, it was close, right? Because your shield was pretty significant. And yeah, again, this Mundo doesn't punish you, and basically gives you what you want on like a free platter, right? Over here, all he needs to do is let this wave push into him and just freeze it, right? He doesn't, like, even trimming it, he doesn't even want to do that because he knows you're not going to be here for the next 30 to 35 seconds, right? So you're guaranteed to lose this wave, you're guaranteed to lose this wave. But instead, look at this guy, he just hard pushes the wave, right? So against a better player, you do get punished a bit for that shen ult. Against this guy, 100% worth. Yeah, so instead you basically lose almost nothing. Like, you were not supposed to get this entire wave right here. Playing. Okay, so we have a neutral wave. Yeah, so normally when you get these neutral waves, like I think like what you want to do with them, it depends on where you are in the matchup, right? Here you have a whole lead, you have a huge lead. Like top lane's basically over. This guy's going to be, kind of useless. Uh, actually, I don't have anything correct, like entirely correct to say here. Like I was going to talk about whether you want to push it and go for other plays elsewhere, or you want to continue denying him. Like here, obviously, it's going to push because the mundo's here, not here. But like, whenever you do have these neutral waves, you do have a decision on whether you want to freeze or do something else. Let's start playing. Okay, see, so we're still making the same mistake. We're still making the same mistake that we are earlier in the game, right? Whenever we have these cannon minions, the thing we want to think about is like pushing, right? The only reason you might want to delay this push is if your jungler needs more time to come in and set up a dive, which like here I'd actually be, we know the Nocturne's on top. I'd be spam pinging to dive this guy. Yeah, I'd be spam pinging your jungler to dive this guy. Even if he has ult, he's just dead. Okay, and the Kindred comes. Oh, are you not walking up because you're afraid of the Bomby? Oh. He just dies without even your Kindred.
Blue team has slain the dragon.
Cool. Let's see what happens here. Kindred does okay, good. Rift Herald. Alt is playing.
Shut down.
Alright, I'm going to spin all this, right? This one. Yeah, so this is actually a super ideal time to shen out, right? Especially when you see this, because like you just crashed the wave, you're resetting. Unfortunately, this wave here isn't a cannon, so typically when it's a cannon wave, it's going to take the enemy team longer to push. So you often don't lose as much, right? But this is like a much more ideal time to use Shen, just because you don't have a slow pushing wave out, and you don't have a giant freeze, right? Shen ulting when you have a freeze also feels pretty fucking awful. Oh yeah, see, so that's where the part about me not playing this champ becomes relevant. Is, in a lot of other champs when you have an advantage, a freeze is really useful, right? But with Shen, if you freeze, it's like, you never want to ult, right? That's what it feels like. So let's check the Shen ult. Yeah, I mean, wasn't it up to that guy? I think it would have been better to ult that guy. Fine. Okay. We don't know where bot is. That's something to think about here. I wasn't paying attention to where they were before. Oh, there they are. Cool. I think for the laning phase, that was like kind of it, right? That was like the majority of stuff I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I saw that like you guys actually just missed that this guy went in, but I don't know, it's hard to predict. Yeah, I think that was like the majority of it for the laning phase. Just because, yeah, it feels like this game's a bit accelerated. A lot of the time when you think about mid game, it's like after turret blades fall, right? So the 14-15 minute mark, but because of how this game is going, it almost feels like you need to switch to like mid game a bit sooner. Yeah, we can skip all of this. Yeah, I think that's basically most of it. Kindred gets to use Rift here. Wait, does he not have Rift? How do I see? Did I just miss him using Rift? Okay, cool. I think that's yeah, that's most of it. The only other point I kind of want to cover is coordinating plays with their team, right? So one thing that'll typically happen in a lot of games, I don't know if I'll want to say a lot of games, but one thing that's like really ideal in a lot of games, right, is something that's more related to the mid laner. So for your jungler, if he wants to make plays bot, right, there's kind of different categories of what's the most punishing against the enemy team, right? So there's obviously diving on slow push stacked waves. There's counter ganking, and then there's doing four-man dive spot, right? So in the case that you actually have prio on the enemy mid laner, what's really ideal for your jungler and mid laner to do is coordinate a four-man dive bot, right? Because even if the enemy jungler is there, I think it's a lot of the times it's really hard to counterplay that play, right? Um, and because of the current game state, I'm pretty sure even if your Kindred tries to go for a play on their bot lane, they're just going to 3v2 them, right? Because of kind of like how insanely ahead this Vayne is. Now, because you're Shen, you can actually take the same role that the mid laner would normally take. What you kind of need to do is communicate and ping to your team when you can make a 4-play bot with them, right? Because I think that's basically the main way that you're going to get back in this game, right? Is you have your ult up, you have a timer to, after you've crashed, to do whatever you want. Your jungler's on the bottom side. You need to tell them to go for a play, and then the 4v2 is basically guaranteed, right? That you're going to kill the bot. Instead, what happens, I think later in the game, what happens here? Don't you have ult? Oh, you're fighting this guy. Oof, that's yikes. Let's see, is there any way you could have predicted this would have happened? I mean, somewhat. You could have somewhat predicted this was going to happen. Like, the thing that lets you predict this might happen is because your laner is trying to crash this wave, right? And because this guy is so ahead, because the enemy lane is so ahead, they're not going to let them do that, right? And they're definitely going to fight your laners. And this is also applicable to cases where, let's say, the game state isn't so lopsided, but, they have like a Samira and Nautilus bot lane, right? And this is maybe like 8 minutes into the game, your laner's trying to crash. And, a lot of the time what'll happen is if it's more close to even or the enemy laner doesn't have an all-in comp, is they'll just let the wave crash, right? But if you have like a Samira Nautilus here, they're gonna fight to the death, on that timer that your laners are trying to crash. This guy's insta-dead. You're here. I mean, I think because Nocturne being here, like, you kind of lost that anyways. But, again, like, I think this is kind of like a more theoretical review of anything, right? Let me just skip ahead to, like, the final part. Where I think this, it's already looking pretty doomed, but it got, like, extra doomed at one point. I think it's around here, yeah. So, this is the thing that I was saying earlier, right? Is because the enemy is so ahead, your jungler is trying to fight them, but they can basically 3v2 them, right? So, your responsibility as Shen is to coordinate plays with your jungler to 4v2 these guys. And instead what happens is, I think Kindred tries to fight them here, and he just dies, and yeah, game's over.
Blue team triple kill.
Cool. Yeah, I hope that was actually useful. Let me know if there's any parts that didn't make sense or you want me to clarify.